Where Chad Hutchinson and the Chicago Bears struggling offense will set up. The Bears won the toss, and the Chicago players out there at midfield looked at each other and said, well, I guess we want the football. Olin Kreutz is headed to his 4th Pro Bowl, and Chad Hutchinson will be trying to distribute the ball to Clark, Wade, Terrell, and the running back, Thomas Jones. And Jones gets it right up the gut, and he's across the 30, knocked down at the 31. A nice gain on first down of 7 yards. And defensively, the Green Bay Packers do not have Grady Jackson in their lineup today, giving that banged up left knee a week off. So Colin Cole gets the start, and then Cledius Hunt, guys, gets tapped on the shoulder this week, and they say you're not playing well enough. So Cullen Jenkins gets the start there. On second down, it's Jones. And Jones is inches shy of the 35. He has got enough for a first down as he picked up 4.
And for Thomas Jones, he sort of picks up right where he left off last time against the Green Bay Packers. 152 yards rushing in that game. And if you followed the Packers defensively, you know that he's one of many this season that's had big days running the football. Fred Taylor, Kevin Jones, Tiki Barber, all up over 150 yards.
First throw of the day from Hutchinson down the middle of the field. Terrell has got it. David into the open field. Barnett chasing him. Al Harris is there, and a fumble. They're going to call Terrell down at the 2. And a huge gain on the first throw from Hutchinson. 63 yards.
Well, one of the areas where Chicago has had some problems is in protecting their quarterback. This time they give Chad Hutchinson good protection up front. He's able to step up. And then David Terrell, of course, the embattled wide receiver who many are suggesting may not even be a part of this club next season, comes up with one of the few big plays they've had.
Over the left side, it's Jones, and he is in a fast start for the Chicago Bears, trying to sweep this season series. And this is a nightmare start for this defense for Green Bay, trying to get some sort of confidence going into the playoffs. That is an awful first series.
Absolutely, and you go back to the play before, and it looked like Al Harris was peeping in the backfield, almost anticipating another Thomas Jones run, gets burned for the big play, and Mike Sherman wanted to see his team get off to a fast start.
Yards back to the big play.
This is really an unbelievable play by Al Harris. He actually peeks in the backfield, anticipating another run from Thomas Jones, and just absolutely drops coverage on the play and allows this big play to happen down the field.
Yeah, and then you'll see Mike Sherman come over and talk to Al Harris on the sidelines, want to know what happened on that play, why there was a bust in that coverage. I'll tell you, Mark Roman, the safety, he also missed on an opportunity to make a tackle and keep him from getting more yards on that play.
Play action from Favre. Over the middle, it's Franks, the tight end. He's got a first down as he is brought down just shy of the 49. They started with that U-71 package with Kevin Berry, an extra offensive lineman in there, and the Packers threw out of it.
Well, this was going to be a double move on the outside, but Charles Tillman doesn't bite. Javon Walker gives him the hesitate and go, and so Brett Favre has to check the thing down and really does a great job of not throwing it into coverage because Tillman did such a good job.
We will keep a close eye on those scores rolling across at the top of your screen today. Trying to set up a screen for Amon Green, and it was incomplete. That'll bring up second down and 10. Offensively, I guess the only question for this offensive line is who's going to get the bigger day and maybe some playing time in the playoff game coming up next weekend between the two centers. Rugemer with Wells spelling him from time to time this afternoon for Green Bay, and then some Pro Bowlers to boast for the Packers with their backs and receivers.
Yeah, and a guy that was left off the Pro Bowl this year, Mike Wall, who certainly had a Pro Bowl year this year. In fact, probably has had Pro Bowl seasons the last couple of years.
On second down and 10, they toss to Green. And Amon Green gets half a yard. Third and long coming up for the Packers. defensively as Todd Johnson comes away after making that last stop. You look up front, Tommy Harris has had a very good year. They're happy with the progress of Ian Scott. Alex Brown and Michael Haynes, the starting defensive ends. Goonlier is out for the rest of the year. The linebackers, Hillenmeyer in the middle, no Urlacher. Bears are winless without Urlacher in their starting lineup. And there's the secondary with McQuarters now at safety. Third down and 9. Out of the backfield, it's Fisher. And Fisher is going to be knocked down short of first down yardage at the Edward Jones Dome. Second down and 7. Favre hits his fullback Henderson. Wide open. Henderson gets it out to the 32. Let's go for a game break. Hello, JB.
Joe Buck, Happy New Year, buddy. Patrick Ramsey and the Redskins capitalizing on a 66-yard kickoff return, hooking up there with Chris Cooley for the score. Washington up 7-0. We know the Vikes need this one. Certainly want this one, but Joe Gibbs has not lost to Minnesota. He's 7-0 against the Vikes. Back to Joe Buck.
All right, JB, so Mike Tice is walking up and down that sideline knowing that his $1 million option has been picked up. But again, it could be a last weekend of the regular season filled with heartbreak for the Minnesota Vikings if they don't figure out how to beat the Redskins.
And you just have to wonder if the Vikings have recovered from that game a week ago, a game that certainly after the interception looked like they had in hand, and then Brett Favre and Javon Walker and Donald Driver pulled off the magic there in the fourth quarter, and maybe there's a little hangover from that.
First string offense still in there for Green Bay, and they'll probably play at least the first quarter. Second down and 4. Favre flips it to Franks. He's been busy here in the first quarter, and Bubba Franks is inside Chicago territory to the 48. Talk about magic, and Brett Favre here in Chicago since 1994. He's won 10 straight, and that is an NFL record for a quarterback against a certain team on the road. 10-0 since 1994.
I had a chance to talk to Brett prior to the game, and you know, he's not going to play the entire ball game. In fact, I would expect that he'll be on the sidelines here after this first quarter. But in talking with him, he would like to play the full 60 minutes. He thinks it's important to try to maintain the momentum that they currently have.
They do a reverse. They hand a Driver, and Driver has nowhere to go. Big loss on the play as the Chicago defense was waiting for it. Idonije makes the stop in the end and a loss of 9.
Yeah, Hunter Hillenmeyer really was the guy that smelled that one out and broke through and just was sitting there waiting for Donald Driver. They were coming on a blitz, and Hillenmeyer couldn't get him on the ground. Maybe the bad ankle had a little bit of an impact there, but when you come around on the reverse and you're looking at the middle linebacker, it's not a very good sight.
So it's second down and 19. Hillenmeyer's a former Packer. Mike Sherman has said he wished he had him back. Full house backfield and a toss to Fisher running left. And the defense for the Bears certainly not mailing it in. A gain of only 2. Third down and forever coming up for the Packers.
Well, and so far what Mike Sherman wanted was for this offense to come out and play well early in the game. Has not really happened, but you know, this is a good defensive football team of the Chicago Bears. And what I thought was interesting this week, and listening to Jerry Angelo, their general manager, as many problems as they have on the offensive side of the ball, he did not rule out the fact that they may still go into the April draft looking for more defensive help.
Third down and 17. Good screen play. Amon Green trying to pick his way for a first down. He's got that and more. Amon Green is down inside the 35 to the 33. Azuma on the tackle. A gain of 19.
It's always just amazing to me that when a defense is looking at a third down and 17, that a draw or a screen can have any kind of success whatsoever. Everybody on the defensive side had to be yelling out, watch the draw, watch the screen in that situation, and yet the Packers still able to pick up the first down.
Yeah, and the screens are something that Green Bay's gotten away from. They've not run as many of them this year. I'm a little surprised Amon Green's still playing in this game. He's playing with fractured ribs.
They hand to Fisher. He goes nowhere. Fisher was met by Marcus Reese, Alex Brown, No gain on the play. You wonder if the Green Bay Packers can get the ball down the field into the end zone. It'll take a little bit of the pressure off Mike Sherman yanking this group after, let's say, 1 quarter of play. If they don't do anything here, it's almost like, you know, maybe you want to run him back out there.
It's really the toughest thing that he's got to try to manage through this game. I mean, certainly you want to go into next week with momentum, but you want to be able to rest some of your players. And so how he's able to balance that and get these guys playing at a significant enough level to where he feels comfortable putting them on the bench is going to be key.
Bears look confused defensively. Favre fires. Fisher makes the catch. He was left all alone by Nate Vasher. Prior to the play, Fisher had no one across from him. Vasher got out there late and then just left him alone.
And you got Chad Clifton here at left tackle working against Alex Brown, and that's one of the reasons why Brett Favre continually has the seasons that he has. He gets great protection off the edges by both Chad Clifton and Mark Tauscher, and Tony Fisher did a nice job, like you said, Joe, of just sitting out there and waiting for the ball to come to him.
I don't think Brett could believe he was that wide open.
Favre for the end zone. Franks is waiting for it. Touchdown.
You've got to be kidding me.
Longtime center for Brett Favre on the left as the Bears hand to Jones, and Thomas is out to the 36, a gain of 3. Just to talk about some of the records that are out there. Brett Favre is now over 4,000 yards passing for the 4th time in his career, and the first time since 1999 with that touchdown throw to Bubba Franks. And as we said, he's got 7 seasons, Chris, of 30 or more touchdowns.
Sorry. Too late, yeah.
7 seasons of 30 or more touchdowns, which is an NFL record. He's got 29 this year. The next closest to him is Marino with 4. He could double Marino.
Drafted him in the first round. He's no longer even in football. And then Rex Grossman, and they're hopeful that he will be that guy.
They toss it to Green as the first string offense is back out on the field, and Amon Green gets 4.
But I think you also have to look at what happened to the Chicago Bears this year. They went in with basically 1 quarterback, and that being Rex Grossman. And with Rex Grossman coming off the knee injury and Chad Hutchinson as your backup, I cannot imagine this football team, and Lovie Smith essentially was telling us the same, not going out and getting another #1 quarterback. Who that may be, we don't know, but certainly they're not going to put themselves in the same position as they did this year. When their quarterback got hurt, their season was over.
Well, and that guy could very well already be on the squad, and Jeff George.
2nd down and 6. And that's in the air, and it falls free. Tommy Harris got his hand up and batted it back toward the face of Brett Favre. It'll be 3rd down.
You really think that Jeff George could be the next guy? I really don't think that that's a possibility, but you may have a different opinion of Jeff George than I do.
No, I just threw it out there.
You just chucked it out there.
You're not hitching your wagon to Jeff George.
That piece of salami hit me right in the side of the head over here.
3rd down and 6. Wall comes over to help give protection to Favre, and Favre just flips it and basically got rid of it before he got pasted, which is good news for Mike Sherman and the Green Bay Packers. Just be smart.
You know, one of the guys who's not playing today is Najee Davenport, and you know, he's had problems all season long just staying healthy. He's had hamstring problems, he's had foot problems, and you know, he's a guy who they really need to get healthy going into the playoffs, because with Amon Green and his health and some of the injuries he's had, Najee Davenport could really help him.
Barker with a punt. McQuarters on the return. Nice return by McQuarters. RW is inside the 40. Impressive return of 21 yards. And for McQuarters, touchdown drive by the Packers in their secondary. 2nd down for Chicago. KGB is coming. And Kabir Bajab-Biamila brings down Chad Hutchinson, and that gives him 10.5 on the year.
Yeah, and Mark Colombo, he's one of the guys who's auditioning in this game. He made his first start in 2 years last week. Got better as the game went along, but he's got his hands full today against a speed rusher. And when you're talking about a guy who's coming off of a knee injury, I don't know what kind of looks Mark Colombo is going to be able to give to this organization. to try to give them an opinion on whether or not he's going to be the guy as they move into next year.
I know what their opinion is after that play.
Well, that's one of those spots in the draft that could come up. Premier left tackle as Hutchinson fires the pass, incomplete. No catch, incomplete pass. Ankle injury, his return is questionable. The Packers have it starting at their own 14-yard line, and you know we're in the second quarter. Favre and company still in there, and Favre airs it out for Driver. Donald Driver goes up to grab it. What a catch by number 80. And he is at the Chicago 38.
Well, again, Brett Favre has time to throw the football and allow Donald Driver to get up this sideline. It's one-on-one on the outside, but Donald Driver just wanted this ball more. You're going to see he's going against Jerry Azuma. Jerry Azuma turning, trying to locate the ball, but Donald Driver went up and made a play. Azuma was in good position, Chris, to try to make a play on it himself.
And how hot is Donald Driver? He played the best game I've ever seen him play in his career last week in that big playoff-like game against the Vikings. He was incredible.
They talk about the great receiver combinations. Wide open is Henderson. William Henderson is in for the touchdown, and that gives Brett Favre 30 for the season. There are no flags down, and Favre is up to 30 for the 8th time in his Hall of Fame career.
So a tremendous blocker, but he's also a good receiver.
Hutchinson hands off. Jones on the carry over the right side, and Thomas Jones picked up 4. KGB on the tackle.
And I think the good news for the Packers is that their passing game is getting hot at the right time as they're going into the playoffs. Donald Driver, the last 6 games, 5 touchdowns and averaging 98 yards per catch. And Brett Favre just off of the momentum from a week ago when he was so brilliant in the 4th quarter leading his team back. You got to know he's feeling pretty good going into the playoffs as well.
And it's so Favre to say what he said during the week. Hey, if I get hurt, I get hurt. I just want to play.
I like his odds.
It's 2nd down and 6. And Jones carries it across the 30 to the 31, got 4, and we go down to Pam Oliver. 3rd down and 2 for the Bears. Hutchinson with time. Over the middle, it's picked off by Sharper. Darren Sharper down the sideline. He's tied a Packer record. Darren Sharper has his 7th defensive touchdown.
Weeks ago in the play he made on that Byron Leftwich fumble, and everybody else thought the play was over. Just a real heads-up guy.
Yeah, you have to at least ask the question, why are the Chicago Bears so sold on Chad Hutchinson? What has he done in the time? And I know he doesn't have a lot of weapons around him, but he has to be doing things in practice. I know he's doing things in the huddle that Lovie Smith likes, but to just automatically say he's played so well that we think he's going to be in our mix for the top 2 spots next year, he still has something to show, and that's why he's playing in this game, and they're not giving a chance to Jeff George to knock the rust off and see what he can do as they hit Jones coming out of the backfield, and Thomas has a 1st down.
Yeah, I think you're right, Joe, and he's obviously going to go into camp, and he'll be battling for that number 2 spot. They feel like they've seen enough from him that he gets that opportunity, but I would agree he's 1-3 as the starter here in Chicago. I mean, he has shown signs of being able to be a contributor for this football team, but it's hard to evaluate all these guys when you're talking about the shuffling of the offensive line. Their wide receivers have had a hard time getting open for them, and very hard for any quarterback to look good in this offense.
Play action on 1st down over the middle. It's Clark, the big tight end, and Desmond Clark gets 5.
You know, I just think it's a matter of comparing Chad Hutchinson to what they saw with Jonathan Quinn and Craig Krenzel. I mean, they were so horrendous at the quarterback position earlier in the season. All of a sudden, a guy that can just throw the ball 20 yards down the field with a little something on it is like, oh, baby, look at this guy. He looks like a quarterback out there. But I just would be really surprised if they're not going out in free agency and trying to land one of the big-name quarterbacks.
The guy they really like is Rex Grossman. And Lovie Smith is completely sold on him. Roman coming on a blitz, and Hutchinson goes down. Back at the 30. And if Roman has done anything from the safety spot, it's that coming on blitzes and getting sacks. He's now got 3.5.
Yeah, the Packers have gotten away from the blitz a little bit here recently, but Mark Roman, the safety, he steps up. Nobody blocks him. Chad Hutchinson does not see it and is unable to get the ball out. But Bob Slowick, the defensive coordinator, on the sidelines again here today for the second week in a row. They say that that's really helped with communication. Not showing as much blitz, but more effective when they use it.
I think that was one of those green blitzes with the tight end blocked that released him to blitz.
Third down at 17. Five-man rush, and Jones, as they try to set up a screen, can't make the connection. Fourth down in this Bears
football, and he's not throwing to the guys that he's going to be throwing to here today.
And this is a big moment for him. There's no question about it. They are, let's say, unconvinced thus far that he is the heir apparent to Brett Favre. And you start looking down the road a little bit in the future, and what do? Every time you have a draft choice, you want to draft somebody to help Brett Favre win a championship, and yet eventually you do know someday you have to draft somebody to replace him.
Well, I think Ron Wolf did it best, and he had the philosophy that they were going to draft a quarterback every year. Every year they were going to bring a guy in, and that's why when you look at the Mark Brunells and the Detmers and those types of guys, why so many young quarterbacks have been here and gone on to play for other teams.
It's second down and 6. Nall fires over the middle, and he completes it to the tight end, Bubba Franks. And they talk a lot about the arm strength, just so people know what the guy looks like. I mean, when he comes in to mop up for Brett Favre, you see him with the helmet on. I mean, this is the face of Craig Nall. There's no truth to the rumors that the FBI has put people into the witness relocation program. Walking the sideline supposedly as the backup to Brett Favre. He's got piercing blue eyes, and he's into the game.
We had him in a production meeting last night. I asked him, I said, is this the first production meeting you've ever been in? And he said, well, actually, I went to one when I was over in NFL Europe. And Brett said, that doesn't count.
That's steal. He was looking for it, and the safety for the Bears, Mike Green, wasn't. And pretty good for Craig Nall.
Well, and I tell you what, for a young quarterback like Craig Nall, and you get in, you're a little nervous, you got some anxiety, and you want to get off to a quick start. Generally, your offensive coordinator will call some things that are shorter passes, but here Mike Sherman, who's still calling the plays obviously for them, he's forcing the ball down the field, and Craig Nall's responding.
But you look at what the guy's done this year. I was kind of joking with him last night. I was like, I'm not so sure you want to get in the game. You might just finish the year with that 144 quarterback rating, but he might improve on it here today.
On first down, Lucci gets the carry. And Nick is down just inside the 25. Just so you know, the guys that have played behind Brett Favre as backups over 14 years, there's been 9 of them that have gotten into a ball game. 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And I'll ask you, Troy, how in the world do you throw a football with a splint on your middle finger on your throwing hand? And that's what Craig Nall has, and it doesn't bother him.
He's been throwing with it all year long, and we saw the graphic, 9 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. You'd like to say, well, these guys have learned a lot from watching Brett Favre, but he's really one of the last guys you want to try to pattern your play after as far as fundamentals.
Nall fires into the end zone. What a catch by Javon Walker.
Wow.
Make it 10 touchdowns and 4 interceptions.
Receivers with 10 or more touchdowns in the same season. Favre is up to his 30 touchdown throws for the 8th time in his career in a season, as the Bears toss to Thomas Jones, and Jones is out of bounds shy of the 40 with a first down for Chicago.
You know, Chris, you talked about the wide receivers for the Green Bay Packers and Javon Walker and the outstanding catch that he made there for the touchdown, but I tell you what, Donald Driver is also a guy, and even though Javon Walker is going to the Pro Bowl, I think that these two guys are really underrated players in the National Football League, and the hands that they have and the way that they come out each and every week and play at such a high level. They have done a terrific job all season long.
Well, especially when you consider the type of weather they play in and how hard Brett Favre throws the ball.
Jones takes an official out with him. The umpire takes a seat. Jones got 9.5, and we will give the umpire half a tackle.
Well, the umpire, he's the guy who got in the middle of the fray last week, and that's why he's got the big knot on his head right now, Jeff Rice. Got a lot of blood. I'm sure he's got some stitches. It's like bull riding in there.
Did you see? He turned his back and he was like, "Oh please, oh please, oh please, don't let him have you." Oh wow.
That's like the old rodeo clown right there.
Somebody give that boy a barrel.
Put some face paint on him.
2nd down and 1.
Oh, man.
Jones has a 1st down.
You know, it's interesting though. You look at all those positive stats for the Green Bay Packers offensively. And this poor guy is trying to just piece himself back together.
He's looking for a helmet.
Oh, boy. Those guys, those umpires, they do earn their money in there. They have to step up into the fray on every single snap of the ball.
What were you saying?
Just talking about if your offense is so good, you're typically thinking, well, why aren't the Packers undefeated? And the obvious answer to that is their defense has struggled as much as their offense has been good.
Hutchinson finds his fullback out of the backfield. That's McKee. And Jason is out of bounds after a gain of 8, forced out by Barnett.
And just to follow up on that, the Packers' pass defense is arguably the worst ever that has ever gone into the playoffs. The opponent's quarterback rating is over 100, and the next closest is 92 for any team that was ever in the playoffs. They've allowed 33 touchdown passes, only 7 interceptions. That percentage is worse than every other team that ever went in the playoffs other than the 82 Oilers.
It's 2nd down and 2. Thomas Jones. It's Mark Roman first there. And Jones lost yardage on the play. Lost 5.
And I think when you talk about that, Chris, that's really the problem for Green Bay. Yeah, they give up yards, but the big problem for them is they don't create turnovers. They're last in the National Football League with only 14 takeaways. And when you look at a defense, for instance, like the Indianapolis Colts, they would say, well, the Indianapolis Colts defense isn't very good and they've got a high-powered offense, but yet the Colts do a great job of pressuring the quarterback and creating turnovers. You never see those kinds of big plays from this defense. Of course, I say that, and Darren Sharper's already got the interception return for a touchdown here today.
Under 3.5 to play in the half. Hutchinson fires into the hands of Wade, and Barnett flashed in front, the middle linebacker for the Packers.
But you really hit on the key there, Troy. This
ends their end. Is that right? I mean, everyone else is having to rely on some other scenario.
That includes that game at Carolina as they hand to Tony Fisher. Carolina can win and still not get into the playoffs with the right or the wrong, however you want to look at it, combination. You see the Jets have gone back in front at St. Louis. They're at the 2-minute warning there with the Jets on top. And the Jets are a team, you know, we can at least look at the AFC. The Jets started out 5-0, and they need to win this final weekend to assure themselves a spot.
Well, that's why the best thing that happened for the Rams is playing the Jets here in Week 16 at home.
You know, the other one is Jim Haslett. How about that? He was essentially fired about a month ago and just playing out the string, and now they're looking at winning their 4th in a row. They're ahead there today, and they could still make the playoffs.
Fisher gets...
What character would you have him do it in?
Andy Rooney. Jones out of the backfield. Open field tackle by a new linebacker, Steve Josu. So that was a bunch of nothing, a gain of 1.
It's really hard to imagine that this game was meaningless for the Green Bay Packers with the way they played here in the first half.
And pressure Hunt. Cledius Hunt gets a sack, and Hutchinson again ends up on his back. Mark Bulger just threw an interception in the end zone for the Rams. 10-7, the Jets lead in St. Louis. Another sack, Cullen Jenkins. He has 4.5, and it is a sack fest for this Green Bay front.
They really know for certain what they have with him.
Now has it tipped at the line, and it falls incomplete.
You know what's going to be really tough for the Chicago Bears is for them to sign a top-level free agent. Let's say Kurt Warner, just for the sake of using an example. They are going to have to tell Kurt Warner that he is coming in to compete for the job. And up till this point, we've always got the feeling that Rex Grossman was the guy, but unless you throw that competition open, they're not going to get one of those top-level guys.
Another guy, Hasselbeck, is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. Holcomb with Cleveland will be unrestricted at the end of the year. And Warner is a name that's come up around here in Chicago. Fisher on the carry. And with under a minute to go, Now we're going to have a timeout.
Less than that because they've got a lot of football left to play this year.
Now just going to take it himself. And Craig is about a yard shy of a first down. Pass completion from Hutchinson to Terrell, and that was really about it for the Chicago offense. Thomas Jones has been pretty good. Stepping in front was McQuarters, who's now playing safety. He got in front of Donald Driver and nearly picked one off.
And I think that's one of the reasons why he was so upset, Mike Sherman that is, so upset about what happened there in that first possession, because Green Bay, when they've had problems, it really hasn't been so much from a physical standpoint. It's just that they've blown coverages, they've gotten lost in zones, they've turned men loose, and that's the thing they have to correct. If they're going to get beat, let them get beat by getting beat physically, but quit making the mental mistakes.
Well, they better tackle better than what they did last week, too.
Fisher on a toss. And Tony Fisher is going to be brought down. They're going to mark him just shy of the 40.
You know, the good news for the Green Bay Packers is they sort of reversed the trend that they've had in the last 6 games. They've had a negative 52-point differential in the first half and have been able to turn it around in the second half. And the thing that they've probably done best is the opening drive of the second half. They've had 7 touchdowns. That's best in the National Football League. So this is when they're at their very best right here.
The U71 package is in. Troy circles big number 71, Kevin Berry. They hand to Fisher. He lowers his head, and he has a Green Bay first down.
And that was one of the things that Mike Sherman wanted to get another good look at today, because Kevin Berry has missed significant time here over the last few games, and they've invested so much into that U71 package, and it's such a big part of what they do running the football that he wanted to be able to work it a little bit here in this last game prior to going into the playoffs. And the other part of that running game is Amon Green and Najee Davenport. We've talked about how they've been banged up. Of course, Amon Green's only had 4 carries here in the first half. I'd be surprised if he gets any more playing time, but boy, somehow here over the next week they've got to get those 2 guys more healthy.
Top 2 receivers are still in there for Green Bay. Driver and Walker. Nall sprints right, throws, and right off the hands of Donald Driver. A rare drop by a guy who's been red hot, as Troy and Chris said earlier, the last few weeks.
And this is really what Donald Driver does best. Mike Sherman telling us last night, typically when the ball is away from Donald Driver's body, he always makes the play. That went a little bit behind, but the Bears defense that time just completely caught off guard. There was nobody within a 20-yard range of Donald Driver, just unable to complete the play.
Yeah, I think the reason Driver had problems with it was coming at about 50 miles an hour, and he's used to it coming at about 70 miles an hour.
Jug style.
Far.
Couldn't catch a changeup. Tony Fisher, Hunter Hillenmeyer, Marcus Reese, Charles Tillman, Todd Johnson, and Gary Fensick. We're all in on that tackle for Chicago.
You know, I tell you what is interesting is, you know, when you get into a game like this, and even in preseason games, a lot of the time, you know, the Brett Favres, the Amon Greens, eventually the Donald Drivers, those type of guys, they'll go over to the sidelines and rest. But the offensive linemen, they never come out of the game. I mean, those guys, they just feel like, hey, these guys don't get hurt. They need to be in there. They need to protect the guys that are out there. But, boy, very few times do they get a chance to come out and take some plays off.
So they are really, for the most part, Green Bay getting a good full look at Craig Nall with just about every weapon Favre has, with the exception of Amon Green. They've still got Driver in there. They've still got Javon Walker in there. They've got that, by the way, the first penalty of the day for the Chicago Bears. So baby steps. Thomas Jones hit the hole hard, spun away from a tackler, and ended up picking up 7 yards. This Bears team now 2 penalties shy of setting a new team record, which was set in 1948, and that's a record you want no part of. If you ask Lovie Smith about his first year as a head coach, he says, really the only way you can judge me is by our record of 5-10, and that's no good. It has not been a good first year.
Coming this way. It's coming this way.
2nd down and 8. Toss to Jones. He has nowhere to go, and coming up to make the stop is Nile Diggs.
And I think when you look at the Chicago Bears and what they're doing. I mean, for Lovie Smith, in order for him to improve on what they were able to do this season, they've got to be able to address this offensive side of the ball, and they've got to be able to score some points. Defensively, it looks like they've got a pretty good nucleus of players, and they're going to continue to get better. They average less than 3 years NFL experience on that side of the ball. It's the offensive side. And yet Jerry Angelo has said, don't rule out the fact that we may draft defense in the upcoming draft. That was somewhat of a surprise.
Pass is caught by Terrell, but he is brought down immediately and short of first down yardage after picking up 9. David Terrell came up shy, couldn't catch and run it for a first down. It's 4th down in this 3rd quarter, and with the 5-yard penalty, a first down for Chicago. So another look at Hutchinson and company, and Terrell makes the catch. David has a first down, the Green Bay 46.
David Terrell, I mean, he came in as a rookie, and people thought that he was going to be a big impact player for this organization, a lot like Anthony Thomas, the year that he was able to have when he came in, and yet it's just never materialized for him. And there's talk that he may not be back next year, but to release him, there's no cap benefit if they release David Terrell. And so why would you not keep him around on your ball club, although they do need to address that position?
Handoff is to Jones, who slips down, and Thomas ends up picking up 2.
Well, I think it's a little bit like the Philadelphia Eagles. They have a couple of guys that could be number 2 receivers, but not really a number 1 receiver a season ago, and maybe the same thing will be true for David Terrell. If they come out and get a real speed guy, get someone that can stretch the defense, find a real top talent, he may come into his own as a number 2 guy, but he certainly hasn't been able to carry the load as a number 1 guy.
And I think to be a better player, he's just got to become he got to concentrate more than he has this year.
Hutchinson has a pocket, fires, incomplete, 3rd down coming up. But as far as comparing Chicago to a team like Dallas, the Dallas Cowboys have 2 first-round picks coming up. They've got money under the cap to use on free agents. If you ask Lovie Smith, he says there's really not a lot of free money or space to go out and really unload on free agents. Maybe we could find a good linebacker to fill in. But that flexibility isn't there.
No, and so they got to build it through the draft. And the one thing about it is they had a heck of a draft this past April and had a lot of these rookies contributing, and they're going to need the same kind of draft this year.
On 3rd down and 8, they hand off to Jones, and Jones is to the 39. That's it. Bring up 4th down.
You're going to have to get to the point with your offense that you feel better about your passing game than that. When it's 3rd down and 8 and you're trailing like this, to believe that your passing game can pick up a first down. Maybe they just considered that 4-down territory and trying to pick up half of it, but clearly this has been an offense and a passing game that just simply hasn't gotten it done. Terry Shea knows that they have to come up with some more weapons if they're going to do it.
The crowd is in a frenzy, going for it on 4th and 4. Setting up for a quick throw. It's Berrien. Perfect pass from Hutchinson. And Bernard Berrien has a first down inside the 22 to the 21.
Really great throw there by Chad Hutchinson. Very decisive on where he wanted to go with the football. He goes to Berry up the sideline. Berry does a good job of getting a release on Ahmad Carroll. Ahmad Carroll, as you'll see, he tries to come up and get a little bit of a jam, but Berry just runs right around him, and a great throw by Hutchinson.
And left tackle Colombo just wasn't up on the line of scrimmage.
I think it's just the opposite. I think the wide receiver has to be on the line of scrimmage, because if he's not, then Colombo is an eligible receiver, so the wideout's obligation is to be up there and cover him up.
Unless he was trying to get a head start and getting back into a pass set. He just wasn't up on the line. Jones, a race with Sharper, and a 1st and goal at the 4.
Pretty good execution there by the Chicago Bears. You're going to see Chad Hutchinson. He's going to fake the pass in order to try to get the linebackers to continue to drop. Desmond Clark on the outside, the tight end, does a good job there securing the corner to get Thomas to the outside.
But for all the things that the Bears have or have not done, signing Thomas Jones was a real coup this year. No one ever could have anticipated that he really could develop into this type of player, but He looks like he has star potential.
Jones gets it just inside the 1. The guy that they're about to say goodbye to is Anthony Thomas. In fact, he knows he is gone. He'll be a free agent at the end of the year, and you're talking about a guy in 2001 that was the offensive rookie of the year as opposed to LaDainian Tomlinson.
And they pretty much told him 3 weeks ago that he would not be back. I mean, and when he had his opportunities this year, Joe, he actually played pretty well.
Second down and goal. They hand it to Thomas Jones, and Thomas Jones is in for the touchdown. And since that first possession and that lightning fast start for Chicago, they're finally back into the end zone and have a chance to cut it to a 14-point game.
And let's give credit where credit is due. That was essentially the #1 defense across the board out there for the Green Bay Packers, and the Bears were able to take it down the field.
Has closed it down to a 4-point game. Pass complete. Javon Walker with the catch. And Walker has a first down. Let's go down to Pam Oliver.
Hey, Joe, it's been pretty well documented the tragic couple of years Brett Favre and his family have had to endure. Currently, his wife Deanna is battling breast cancer. In fact, she'll have her final chemo session tomorrow. Speaking to Brett before the game, he mentioned the lovely surprise note he found in his suitcase this weekend. The gist of it, how much Deanna Favre believes 2005 will be a much better year for their family, and that no matter what, they can get through anything together. And we certainly wish Deanna the best. She's certainly been a trooper throughout this latest ordeal. Joe?
Yeah, that comes from all of us with Fox. And I guess when it's said to any member of the Favre family these days, Happy New Year, it has a little different meaning to the Favres than it does to some others. Second down at 13. Now fires, got Javon Walker wide open. Walker had to wait for it a bit, but it's a first down for Green Bay at the 21. With Nall under center and that good offensive line still out there. Nall's going to throw for the end zone, and Driver incomplete. There was pressure by Reese, and Jerry Azuma comes up pleading his case, saying he was interfered with by Driver.
Yeah, they're saying that Donald Driver pushed Azuma and kept him from being able to pull that ball in for the interception, and Donald Driver going to the corner. Greg Nall just trying to give him a chance to make a play. He definitely got his hands on his back.
I don't think Chicago Bears fans are going to be too happy with the officials to close this season. Of course, last week Bernard Berrien had one stolen from him, what looked like the game-winning touchdown pass, and then Azuma, no question about it, offensive pass interference right there.
So it's third down and 7. Now sprints left. What a block by Rivera. Rivera got out and threw a block on Alex Brown. Alex Brown was salivating coming after Nall, and then Brown was knocked to his backside.
Yeah, you're going to see him pull the right guard, and that's why he's going to the Pro Bowl again this year.
Now that's Azuma coming on a blitz with Brown behind him, and it was Rivera saving Nall a bruise.
You know, this offensive line, if you want to play the finesse game and pass protection, you want to play the power game or the pulling game, the screens, I mean, they're so athletic and so strong and powerful. They can do just about anything you want them to do.
Barry in the lineup for Green Bay, and it's Fisher up the middle.
And you know what's really interesting about this offensive line is they have some decisions they're going to have to make this offseason. Marco Rivera, Mike Wall, both outstanding guards, really about as good as you can find. Rivera constantly in the Pro Bowl, I think the last 3 years, when they think Mike Wall is every bit as good. But Wall may actually be the guy they retain just because he's a little younger and a little more athletic if one of them has to go.
Talked about the battle between Rugemer and Wells, whether it's a manufactured battle by Mike Sherman or not. Wells is in its center on second down and goal for Green Bay. Now sprints right, throws back across the middle, and it's tipped. Incomplete, and Briggs, who's had a very good year, got his hand in the way of that pass intended for Ben Steele.
And it looked like Craig Nall had a shot at that one, but he just took a little bit something off his fastball. Ben Steele there on the back line. Nall does a good job of seeing him. I don't know that he had much of a chance. Maybe if Ben Steele had pulled up just a little bit earlier, he'd gotten some separation there. from Lance Briggs.
And how athletic is Lance Briggs? They had a monster game last week, 12 tackles, an interception, return for a touchdown, and they all talk about Urlacher, but this kid right here is tremendous.
3rd down and goal. Blitz coming from Chicago, now flips it for Chapman, incomplete. Vasher. Nate Vasher, the rookie, made the play. And that'll bring up 4th and goal, and the field goal unit will come on. He was able to get up and walk off, but I'm sure he's not coming back today. And a good catch there over the middle by Bernard Berrien. Pass was behind him, good for 5, and let's go down to Pam Oliver. Doing a great job this week, as they do every week, 31-14. Start the 4th quarter, and the Bears toss to Thomas Jones. Jones is out near the 20. What's going on around the NFL?
And to the Saints in the 3rd. Back to Joe Buck.
All right, JB, thanks.
Boy, Hussein Muhammad has just been phenomenal this season.
And he's as big a reason as anybody that the Carolina Panthers, after a 1-7 start, have a realistic shot at making the playoffs for the win today.
Well, you think about it. I mean, Steve Smith became their go-to guy last year in their run to the Super Bowl. A few years back, Musa Muhammad, he had over 100 receptions. You know, was a Pro Bowl player, and he's showing that he's more than just a blocker and a possession guy. He's also become their big play receiver this season.
I would say free agency will hit at a good time for Hussein Muhammad. On 2nd down, Hutchinson looking to his left the entire way, and he hits Bobby Wade. Wrapped up by Al Harris. So I think, guys, what we thought coming in is pretty much played out. Maybe you could say the Green Bay offense played a little longer than some might have thought, but this Green Bay defense, you still see Al Harris and Diggs and the defensive line and Barnett. This is a defense that's still trying to gain some confidence going into the playoffs.
And I think that's exactly the point, is that this team wants to play a full game and look good, even though it is against a fairly inept offense, at least trying to gain some measure of confidence going into the playoffs.
3rd down and 7. Hutchinson had all day and finds Wade for a 1st down.
You know, I think one of the things we've seen from Chad Hutchinson, not only in this game but in the other games that he's played, is when he gets some time to throw the football, he's generally pretty effective, which is true about any quarterback at this level. And he steps in there and he knows where he wants to go with it. And, you know, again, you've got a guy running over the middle of the ball, and Bobby Wade open against his secondary for the Packers.
That is the first 3rd down conversion to a 1st down all day for Chicago. Hutchinson running for his life. Cole was chasing him, and the pass is caught by Wade. Barnett flashed in front, and Wade still had enough concentration to haul it in.
You know, I know Bobby Wade is not a top physical talent, but I have always really enjoyed watching him play. When the quarterback is scrambling, so many receivers act like they don't care. Watch Bobby Wade. He is going to work hard to at least try and come back and help his quarterback a little bit. And Nick Barnett just barely missed that one.
The only one more surprised that he caught it other than Bobby Wade was Chad Hutchinson. I mean, I don't know how that ball got in there.
2nd down and 3. Great work by Wade to keep his feet in. 21-20, St. Louis out in front of the Jets. That's not going to work. Thomas Jones and the Packers were all over it. Niall Diggs, the linebacker, sniffed it out.
You know, Chris, you talked about the Green Bay Packer defense a little bit, and I know a few weeks back in talking with Brett Favre and asked him where this team ranked with the Super Bowl teams that he was a part of, and he really felt that this team was more talented than those Super Bowl teams, but they weren't as experienced. And I think he had to have been talking more about the offensive side of the ball, because those teams that went to the Super Bowl with Brett Favre at quarterback were awfully good on defense.
I have to go all the way back to Joe's opening comments about the locker that they set for Reggie White in there. Maybe then they would have been.
On 3rd down, the pass incomplete. They're ruling that a pass.
Apply to that situation.
Well, good. That's something that we can read about leading into the playoffs next week.
Yeah, who's on first?
Chris, I nominate you. Toss to Jones running left, and with a fresh chance, It is a 10-yard scamper by Thomas Jones. It's a game break, and let's go out to JB.
Hey, Joe, we know the Saints need a win and some help to get into the postseason. Take a look at this bullet here. 2 big pass plays to Joe Horn. This is the second one, 44 yards there. That expanded the lead over Carolina, 21-10 late in the third. Rams and Jets. Tough ball game indeed, still nip and tuck. Rams nursing just a 1-point lead back to Joe Buck.
It's like watching an election. Everything changing moment to moment as Hutchinson fires and he hits McKee, the fullback, and that's good for a first down. Just to elaborate on what JB said, New Orleans gets in with a win and a St. Louis loss, and they're leading by a point right now, or a win and a Seattle win and a Minnesota win. So that's the situation for New Orleans as they add to their lead at Carolina. And that, forget the other stuff, it's impressive, and more so what New Orleans is doing at Carolina.
Yeah, the first thing they have to do is beat Carolina, and they're doing it against a pretty good team.
Handoff is to Thomas Jones, and he ran into a wall, no gain.
And the crowd doesn't like the decision to run the football here. Trailing by a bunch as time ticks down. They have been at least a little bit patient with this offense here today, but for Terry Shea and company, there's no question that they have to find some playmakers. And Troy, I guess the other question is, does Terry Shea stay on as the offensive coordinator? That's something that's certainly going to be debated as well.
2nd down and 10 here. Play action from Hutchinson. Over the middle, he's got Thomas Jones, and there's a penalty flag at the end of the play. Well, heading out of training camp.
You combine that with most sacks ever by a Bears team. Not very good.
2nd down and 20. And the pass is gunned into the gut of Desmond Clark, and he can't hang on. 3rd and 20. And just one other point about that score. We showed you the 1-point lead for St. Louis. They need to win and then get help with either a Minnesota loss or a Seattle loss up at home later today against Atlanta to get in. 3rd down and 20. You see Washington with that 4-point lead they're maintaining over Minnesota.
Not sure the people in Minnesota could take another collapse like what they saw last year, but it could potentially happen here.
6-0 start last year, they don't get in. 5-1 start this year, and they may not get in. Hutchinson fires, but way short of first down yardage is Clark, and bring up 4th down. Only a 7-yard gain.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that these fans have become so frustrated with is, and it's not just isolated to this year with Terry Shea. It was also with Stoops, John Shoops, when he was the offensive coordinator here. They don't do anything to push the ball down the field. I mean, they're constantly throwing the underneath passes, not forcing anything down deep, and eventually these defensive players start clamping down on you. And now you get into these 4th and longs.
4th down and 13 here. Good jump by KGB off the line, and he comes away with a sack. They are going to say that Hutchinson was brought down by Kabir Bajabiamila. Kevin Barry is now in at the regular right tackle position, and they hand to Fisher. And that poor umpire, who's got a microphone on him, you could hear him react as he ended up on all 4s again.
Jeff Rice has had a very difficult couple of weeks.
And now getting up and limping off the field is Bubba Franks. He actually limps back into the huddle, and you can see Franks get bent over backward on the right side of the screen as the umpire ends up
We're going to have to
on the turf again.
Start giving him some butt pads.
He's going to have to get in a whirlpool after the game. Getting some Epsom salts.
Tough day.
The Jets out in front of Jonathan Vilma. Interception for a touchdown. The rookie has had a great year for the Jets, and they lead now at St. Louis with the extra point coming up as Tony Fisher gets the carry on 1st down.
You talked about that score in Minnesota, Washington going up on them, and Dante Culpepper has really had an outstanding season this year, and not many people have talked about it because of the fact that the Minnesota Vikings have not been able to win some of these big games that they've been a part of, and it's really no reflection on him. I mean, he's actually played well in most of those games. It's just been primarily the defense that's not played well, but it's unfortunate because a great year that he's had has gone unnoticed by a lot of people.
Handoff is to Fisher again. He's been busy. Ben Steele got drilled in the back of the leg.
Just so everybody understands this, the outside gunner on a punt team, you cannot have pass interference against him, but because the interference happened on an inside receiver going to the outside, there can be pass interference on him. So the interference was not here. It was not on this guy. It was on the inside receiver that came to the outside, and that's where the interference took place. You can't have interference on an inside receiver, not on an outside gunner, and quit laughing, Trey.
Well, our viewers are so much happier that you informed them.
Well, I knew there was a rule in there somewhere. I just couldn't remember it.
3rd down and 3, and Tony Fisher scoots it inside the 30, and that's a Green Bay 1st down. Under 5.5 to play. You will rest your little head on the pillow tonight. Sleep soundly.
If the outside gunner had run a double move and then gone to the middle, but the inside guy ran the inside slant and then came back to the outside, would it be?
Would you shut up? It's a new rule about 6 years ago when all of a sudden teams used to just take the ball and throw it up to the gunner on the outside, and the guy that was on the gunner would just be jamming him the whole way down as you would on a punt return. So they made that change in the rules. But here's the bigger story right now.
They're looking at the left knee of Bubba Franks. We saw him get bent over backward about 3 plays ago. His legs were engaged. He got bent over backward. Franks, on the other hand, was bent over backward and injured his left knee, and they're looking at his knee over on the sideline. The injury happens on the right side of your picture. And it goes without saying that should the Green Bay Packers lose Bubba Franks in a game of this nature, with the playoffs coming up next weekend, in a 31-14 game with 5 minutes to go in the game at Chicago, they will be kicking themselves all the way back to Green Bay about that.
Yeah, and that's one that looks like it could be serious. He was engaged in the block and then got rolled up behind, and that's how a lot of serious injuries occur. You just hope that he's okay.
Well, plus you have to consider the fact they've already lost David Martin, so they would be down to Ben Steele as their starting tight end for the playoffs. And
for them, the Jets lead at St. Louis by 5 as they begin the 4th quarter in St. Louis. Hutchinson fires, and Lyman, the tight end, makes the catch. And he is out to the 28. The Minnesota Vikings can literally back into the playoffs, even with a loss at Washington, as they trail by 11 with 7.5 minutes left there, if St. Louis loses.
You got to wonder how good they'd feel about that.
Better than St. Louis, it feels.
Next week, wild card playoff football action. Remember last year?
The Adler's won the toss. We won the ball, we're going to score.
Looks like pressure.
They're coming. The pass is picked off. Intercepted. Back the other way. The Green Bay Packers advance. Next Sunday, right here on Fox, 4 Eastern. Wild card playoff football. 3rd down and 2, and the pass to a wide open Desmond Clark. 1st down Chicago, out across the 35 with 3 minutes left in this one. By the way, another way that Minnesota can get in, not only a St. Louis loss, but a Carolina loss. So both ways they're looking good for their playoff hopes. But as Troy said, literally would be them backing into the playoffs as the ball comes out. It's sitting there on the ground, and Chicago ends up back on top of it. That thing was sitting there for anyone to take, and the Bears get back on top of it. Campman and KGB collapsed on Hutchinson on the play.
Yeah, that's really, we talked about it a little bit earlier, one of the problems Chad Hutchinson has had. He's now 20 fumbles in 15 career games.
Yeah, he's got a chance for another. Penalty flag comes in at the back end of the play. 2nd down and 10. Hutchinson hangs in, flips it high, caught by Wade, and Wade is wrangled down. A gain on the play of 7.
See, they're stretching it out now.
We're coming up with a 2-minute warning. Can they get the play away?
Well, they've got past their season average of 238. They're now at 242 yards for the day.
They do get the play off. Last play for the 2-minute warning, and it's Terrell on the catch. First down at midfield. The great Reggie White, who passed away last Sunday at the age of 43. Hutchinson on first down here, hands off to Thomas Jones. And we talked to Mike Sherman about Reggie White, Sherman was a tight ends coach when White was around. He said it was amazing how many battles he won just on fear alone. And you measure the greats by how they make other great players look, and he made some great ones.
And Mark Colombo, in just his second start back after that injury, has had a nightmarish day, and you wonder, it just adds to the list of what the Bears have to fix. But you know, to go back to Reggie White, I think NFL players in general don't fear getting hurt. They fear getting it
on the field, but more importantly, what he meant as a person.
On 4th down and 16, Hutchinson's going to go down again. Arkel Truelock.
Based on what you did against the Chicago Bears offense, you know, because they're not going to see any Chicago Bear offenses come playoff time.
So the Green Bay Packers will head off the field winners of 9 of their last 11 games. They had the 6-game winning streak after that 1-4 start. They win the NFC North. They're the number 3 seed, the playoffs for the NFC, and they will finish the year 10-6. While the Chicago Bears are 5-11, and they have clearly a lot of work to do heading into this offseason, looking ahead to next football season here in Chicago. So that does it for this one. I'm Joe Buck for Troy Aikman, Chris Collinsworth, and Pam Oliver. So long from Chicago.